Hey guys, this is Emily. I wanted to create some videos to help guide you guys through setting up a Microsoft Word document with APA formatting. I think that if you just get a quick overview of it, it might make it a little less painless throughout the semester as you're increasing your foundation with APA. I do know that APA is a little challenging at first. It's almost like a foreign language. But the more you build on it and the more of an understanding you have of the content will really help you in the future, especially with speed of writing papers and formatting things. So this is just a basic demonstration of PC version of Microsoft Word. I think this is Microsoft Word 2010. This is my employer Microsoft Word, so there may be some differences depending on which type of Microsoft Word you use, but for the just overview of APA, this might help you get started. So one of the things I'm going to talk to you about is setting defaults for your system for APA. That will really help you in the future to make sure that you don't have to stop and take these steps the first time you open a document every time from here on out. So we'll get started with that. With Office, one of the easy things you can do is just right-click to get going, and we're going to start with setting our default font. So as you click on Font and you open, you're going to want to select Times New Roman with a regular font style at size 12 point font. That should be the default that you set for your system. If you really like Comic Sans, I guess you can go ahead and keep that or use whatever type of font you do enjoy. You'll just have to change it each time you set up an APA paper. If you want to keep it as Times New Roman and save yourself a little headache, then go ahead and set as a default for all documents based on a normal template, which is what it will open to for default. And we're going to say yes. Okay, so once we've set our font for our document, we're going to right click again, and this time we're going to open up Paragraph. Most people realize that with APA you have to do double spacing. That is important for APA stylistically. The other thing you'll notice when you're first opening this up is that typically this spacing is set to 10 points after each line. That is for when you do like a paragraph. A new paragraph will trigger a little extra space between the previous paragraph. For APA style, you don't want to do that. You just want to keep everything at 0 point. The double spacing and the indents that are set will help to kind of define your paragraphs more than enough. And that's what you want stylistically. So we're going to keep it double spacing, 0 point font. The other thing we'll do is set this one again as a default for all of our documents. One more time going back into Paragraph, something you may be able to do before you set the default is you're going to click on Tabs in the lower left-hand screen. When you open up the tab, for APA specifically, at the beginning of each paragraph should have an indent that is either 5 to 7 spaces or half of an inch. So if you set your default tab to half of an inch, you won't have to hit the space bar 5 to 7 times each time you hit a new paragraph. If you really want to do that, that's fine. Just make sure you do the 5 to 7 spaces. But if you go ahead and make sure that your default tab is set to half of an inch, then you can just hit tab whenever you open up that document. Just so I don't throw you off completely, I have the paragraph symbols turned on. I like to be able to see all of my spaces. It helps me when I'm writing the document to make sure I'm doing 2 spaces after each period. For some people it gets busy and they don't like it, but it's an option when you're editing and reviewing your paper to go ahead and hit that paragraph symbol just so you can follow it. So once we've gotten past setting the paragraph defaults and also the font, one more thing you want to check is the page layout itself. So for APA, the margins should be 1 on each side. So whether it's the top, the bottom, the left, or the right, you want those 1-inch margins throughout your document. So you can usually select that just by tapping normal. The other option would be go into custom margins, you set it, and then you're going to set as your default. And that takes you through the behind the scenes work on your APA paper. The next thing that we'll talk about will be the headers, because that has a tendency to get people a little worked up. But once you get the hang of it, it's really easy. So for headers, there's two ways to do it, just like there are usually two ways to accomplish anything in any Microsoft product. The first thing you can do is go into Insert, because we're inserting some type of object into our document. We're going to click on Insert, and we're going to come over to about midway where it says Header right here. To insert it, you can drop down, and I like to pick the blank one because we have to set it into APA format, and all these other things are pretty busy. So you'll just click the blank one at the top. The other thing with APA headers is there is a different first page. Before you start typing in the header box, it's usually nice to go ahead and click that different first page, because it is going to open up a new header. So if you had already started typing your first page header in and then you click different first page, you'll have to retype it. So once you've hit different first page, we're going to come in to our header box, and for APA it's going to be running head with a capital R, a lowercase h, and then a colon. Following that is going to be your abbreviated title. So if your entire title for your paper is the length of the header coming up against the page number, you need to abbreviate it. It should be concise enough that it fits comfortably on the page while also conveying what needs to be said about what your title means. So there is an art to selecting appropriate header titles and also paper titles in general. But just keep it in mind that the header title is abbreviated, but should also be pretty clear as to what you're discussing in the paper. So once you've done title in all capitals, or your title in all capitals, your abbreviated title, you're going to tab over to the right-hand corner of the header. And then coming back up to our header and footer tools, come over to page number where you click down, hit current position, and a plain number. When you hit current position, it's going to drop the number into whatever location your text cursor is. So if our text cursor is over here, it's going to drop the 1 right there. And if you do that on accident, that's fine. Just add a couple tabs before it, and it'll move it back over to your right-hand corner. But that's something just to keep in mind, that using the current position saves you the headache of having your header title on one line and then your page number on a separate line beneath it. So that covers the first page header. We'll go ahead, we'll double click out of our header and come down to our second page so that we can manipulate that header while we're working on our headers. So for our second page header, bring my screen down. We'll do it the second way that you can insert header. So the first way was to go to insert and then click header, and that inserted the header. But we also already have a header here that's pretty easy, but you can right click here, which is what you could do even if there wasn't a header in place, and click edit header. So for this part, we're going to take out that text. I also am going to get rid of that extra line. And then for the second page and all subsequent pages, you're going to type in just the title, the abbreviated title. So you aren't going to put in running head here. You're still going to continue with all capitals, and that covers. And again, it should be a concise title that covers the purpose of the paper while also not crowding up your header. So once you've done that, you're going to tab over again and drop yourself another nice little page number. And it will automatically go to 2. And then your subsequent pages will be lined up. Okay, so once we have our headers taken care of, and all of our subsequent pages will be fine after this, we can go ahead and start hitting on some of the other components of the APA paper. So coming back up to the first page and clicking outside of the header, the first page of your APA paper is going to be a cover page. So the way to do your cover page is going to be by centering your font, and then the first line will be with normal capitalization as appropriate, your title of your paper. Oops. Once you've done that, you're going to go down one line, and again, being centered, That will be your author name, so yourself. If you're working on a group project here, you can do all of the authors in alphabetical order. And then your third line is going to be your university affiliation. So once that's taken care of, you're pretty much set with your cover page for now. We'll skip over the abstract items just because it's not always something that you need to do, and we're just kind of trying to cover some of the more basic points of APA right now. So once you've completed your cover page, you're going to come down to the actual content of your work, the big content body portion of your paper. So the first line on the page of your paper will again be your title. And as you can see, there is no additional emphasis on it. There's no bolding, there's no underlining, there's no all capitalization. It is just the title of your paper to give the reader one more opportunity to remember what they're reading and what the content is supposed to be describing before moving on to the actual work. So then you would come down. We have our beautiful tab button set to 1/2 of an inch, and you'll begin writing your paper. Some things for the body of your paper that you should probably know and should probably be easily reviewable based on your previous experience with APA. There is, for sentences, you're supposed to follow every period with 2 spaces. That's because of type, and largely because some of the different letter symbols might infringe upon the space of the next word. So they like to have 2 spaces behind each sentence. That's one thing. The other thing to keep in mind when you're writing an APA paper is your voice. You should work, especially at this point in your academic career, to write with a professional voice. So that means making sure that you're clearly communicating without just using unprofessional speech or talking as if you're talking to your friend. You should work to be clear and concise in your speech. And they also talk in APA about avoiding a passive voice. I'm not going to go too deep into that because it can be a little confusing, but it's something that as you get more comfortable with the foundation of APA, you should start to incorporate more into your papers, making sure that you're meeting all of the different parts of what they recommend for APA type papers. So one more thing I think we should cover before we finish up talking about the body is the fact that if you start having levels of headings within your paper, say you have different subsections or you want to start putting the headings for rubrics within your paper, which might be something that you encounter whether it's this semester or the next semester, there are specific APA levels of headings that you should know. I'm not going to show them to you right now. I will tell you that on page 62 in your APA book, they give you a really good table that shows you the level of heading. And you can also find good resources on OWL for that, the OWL at Purdue website. But just know that if you get to a point where you need to use headings in your document, there are specific APA formats for headings that you should incorporate. The same thing applies to styling of tables, graphs, any type of image that you want to put in. You should always reference the APA manual or one of the APA resources before you do it because there is going to be a specific way that it should be done. So we will move down to our reference page and talk a little bit about some things on the reference page that you can do to make it a little bit easier. And it's not anything really exciting, but when you hit your reference page, you should have it labeled. And then on that first line, you're going to begin your actual citations, which you've been referencing clearly throughout your paper. And again, there's really good tables for in-text citation and everything else inside the APA manual. So say you have a reference here on this page, and I'm just going to make something up real quickly. And I'm going to keep going so that I can hit 2 lines. And we're almost there. Okay, so we've hit 2 lines. So on APA formatting, there's little formatting change that you need for your reference page. One thing you should remember is you need to alphabetize your references. The other thing to remember is that you need to do a hanging indent. So one way of doing that is if you do a paragraph break at each of the end of your references, that will set you up for success. And then at the very end, you're going to select your references. You're going to right-click, go into paragraph, and Microsoft was kind enough to offer a hanging indent as an option for this. I don't know if it's specifically for this, but this is what it works with. So once you select a hanging indent, you're going to say OK, and that will move your second line of each citation over to the APA format type way. So that's one other key little piece of information that should be helpful to you to getting it organized. Otherwise, you can play a lot with the different rulers and grids, but that can become pretty frustrating after a while. If you just put them all in and then line them up appropriately, that'll help. Another little key point that I want to point out about the references, a lot of people like to use citation managers to create their reference list. I would strongly advise against that for a couple of reasons. The first reason being that the citation managers are, the citation generators are typically inaccurate. Whether it's because they don't put things in the correct order or because they don't prompt you for proper capitalization, that's one thing to be concerned about. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you learn the format for these citations or reference lists, it becomes so much easier. And if you tend to, which most of us ultimately do, use the same type of sources over and over, there's not that many variations you have to memorize. So if you start getting a good foundation in APA now, it'll really help you out in the long run, and that's something to keep in mind. So that kind of covers that. The other little things I just wanted to point out to you guys include use your APA book a lot like you would a dictionary or a thesaurus. It will really help you in the long run if you just kind of grow that knowledge and make sure that you're understanding how the different APA things work. It's a really good resource, and the book has an excellent index. So for the most part, if you have a question about something, you can peek at the index and then pop to whatever section it is that discusses it, and that will really help you. I'm going to try, as we're grading your papers, to reference page numbers in APA for you guys to look at, because there's also a lot of really good charts to help, whether it's for in-text citations or reference pages or stylistic components. If you get comfortable using the APA book, you don't need to spend money on another book. You don't need to waste your time on citation generators. You'll just be able to put the information in there, plug it, and go. The other thing to do that will help you in the future is to save this as a template for yourself to reuse over and over again. So the easiest way to do that is going to be opening File, click Save As, and then you want to name it something really exciting like APA template. If you do that, and then you save it somewhere really nice, like I like to save really cool things on my desktop, or if you want to save it somewhere in a folder somewhere, once you save that, you'll have that template forever. And you can open it in the future, change the title, update the headers, and then just begin writing your paper, and all of that style has been started for you. What I would recommend is once you open it, change the title, save it under a new title, and that way your APA template stays untouched and you have your new document ready to go. So those are some recommendations I have. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to contact us, especially if there's anything we can clarify. I'm not an expert. If I notice any errors in the video, I'll let you know. And of course, if you have questions that you think other classmates may be wondering, which is very likely, feel free to post it in the discussion board. You guys are off to a great start. APA is just one of the growing pains of getting back in the vibe for school. So since you're well underway, I think that you're going to have great success. I just wanted to offer you an additional resource to see if we could get those neurons firing and see if there is anything else that you guys want additional videos on or any help with. Just let me know. All right, thanks.